All right, Mr. Chairman, the meeting is open to the public and the press, and we are now live on Facebook.
Okay, thank you, Josh. We'll go ahead and get started with this meeting of the Gallatin Planning Commission, Monday, March 22nd. Let me read a short message. Pursuant to the Governor's Executive Orders number 16, number 34, number 51, number 60, number 65, number 71, and number 78 regarding public meetings and social distancing and the need to limit the community spread of COVID-19. Members of the Planning Commission may participate by electronic means, and the meeting will be live streamed to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the members and citizens of Gallatin. We need to hold a vote by the members of the commission to, and all of those in favor of holding the meeting by electronic means, and we'll combine that with a roll call vote. So when your name is called, if you're in favor, please indicate by saying aye and present. Mary Ann, if you'll call the roll.
Yes. Chair Puryear.
Present and approve.
Vice Chair Harris.
Present and approve.
Mr. Wilson.
Present and approved.
Councilwoman Love.
Present and approved.
Dr. Orgain. Mr. Strouder.
Present and approved.
Ms. Hibbler. It's 5-0.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Ann. And it sounded to me like at this time, we're missing two members,
Yes.
Dr. Orgain and Mrs. Hibbler. Okay. If you'll keep an eye when you see them join, please let us know and indicate for the record. We'll move forward with an invocation. Albert, will you do the honor of giving an invocation?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Father, once again, we bow before you, thanking you for the opportunity to serve. We thank you, O Master, for watching over our community for these many days and allowing us, to Master, to continue to prosper. We ask that you keep your hands upon our community, continue to bless us with your love and your guidance. We ask your blessings on the sick, the shed, and those who have been affected by this pandemic. But now, Master, let us do the things you find pleasing in your sight for the betterment of our community. We ask it all in your name. And Father, in the name of Jesus, we pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Mr. Wilson, do you have that flag handy? I see it in the background.
Yes. Okay.
Will you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, individually, with justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We will, Mr. Secretary, do you have prior minutes to submit for approval?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got minutes dated February the 8th, February the 22nd. I move we approve.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion to approve, and we have a second by Matt Harris, I believe. Any discussion on the minutes? I'll make one comment of discussion. I was reading through these minutes, and I just want to commend Mary Ann for what a great job she does of keeping accurate minutes. I don't know if you have the advantage of listening to those as you go, or if you're actually recording all that stuff as we go, but it's accurate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Off to you. No other discussion. All in favor of approval of those minutes indicate by saying aye. Mary Ann, will you take a roll call vote?
Yes. Chair Puryear.
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson. Councilwoman Love.
Aye.
Dr. Orgain. Mr. Strouder.
Aye.
Ms. Hibbler. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. Tonight we have a total of 11 items on the agenda plus some other business following that. The first 5 items on the agenda are consent agenda items. And for the benefit of the public who may or may not have an agenda printed in front of them. I'm going to read through these very quickly. Items 1 through 5, again, are consent agenda items. They include item number 1, which is surety renewals and extensions, the City of Gallatin. It's pretty procedural. Item number 2 is Village Green Crossings, Section 5, accepting the public improvements, fairly procedural. Item number 3 is Green and Little Merry Middle Drive, accept public improvements. Item number 4 is Oxford Station, Phase 2, a re-subdivision of lots 2B and 2C, a final plat. Item number 5 is Villas on the Green, Phase 2C, a final plat. Again, those items are on the consent agenda. And then the regular agenda items, which will include discussion, and by the way, have a public comment with each item on the regular agenda tonight. Anyone wishing to speak can speak on any of these items. Item number 6 is the Wash and Roll amended preliminary master development plan and revised final master development plan. It's car wash. Item number 7 is Northfield Church, a rezoning with preliminary master development plan. Item number 8 is Holloway Investments, a rezoning with preliminary master development plan. Item number 9 is Vinewood Townhomes, a preliminary master development plan. Item number 10 is Andy's Frozen Custard, amended preliminary master development plan and revised final master development plan for that site. Number 11 is Hangar Unlimited at 870 North Blue Jay Way, a rezoning with preliminary master development plan. So we'll move to items 1 through 5, which is the consent agenda. I'll first ask, I'll open a public comment if there's anyone in the public who wishes to either speak on item 1 through 5 that I mentioned, or if you would like for us to remove one of those items and place it on the regular agenda for thorough discussion. What we generally do is vote on the consent agenda items as one combined package, unless someone wants to remove it. So, Josh, if you'll open a public hearing or ask for comments in a public hearing, please.
I got you, John. If you are a member of the public and would like to speak on any of the consent agenda items, that would be items 1 through 5 on tonight's agenda, please indicate so by using the raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen. Or if you are joining us via telephone, hit *9 on your phone and it will virtually raise your hand for me to know to call on you. Again, this is a public hearing for the consent agenda items 1 through 5 on tonight's agenda. If you would like to speak on them, please use the raise your hand function located at the bottom of the screen. And also, Mr. Perrier, Alana Hibbler has joined the meeting.
Thank you, Josh.
And there is no one raising their hand indicating they would like to speak on any of the consent agenda items.
All right, at this time, I will close, or seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Now I'll ask members of the commission, is there anyone on the commission who would like to pull any of the items on the consent agenda and place them on the regular agenda? Seeing none, I believe I'm seeing all the screens there. Seeing none, we will, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Motion to approve consent agenda items number 1 through 5.
We have a
Second.
motion by Matt Harris and a second by Albert Strada. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Marion, will you take a roll call vote? All in favor of approval of consent agenda items 1 through 5, indicate by saying aye.
Yes. Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Dr. Orgain, Mr. Strouder,
Aye.
Ms. Hibbler.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you, Marion. With that, we'll move into the regular agenda, and we'll start with item number Resolution number 2021-031. It's wash and roll, amended preliminary master development plan, and a revised final master development plan. Which staff member is handling this item?
That would be me. Or can you hear me talk? This is Sharon Burton.
Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Okay. This is the preliminary master development plan, well, a revision to it for the Windsong, and the final master development plan for wash and roll. You saw this at the work session. They are planning on a wash and roll on lot 4, one of the out parcels that's along Highway 109, and Maharis Drive, which is going to be a private roadway connecting the 4 parcels. The wash and roll, this will be their 3rd one in Gallatin. They have met all the requirements as far as they didn't change any of the accessibility of it, and we discussed that quite a bit at the work session. They do have a good landscaping plan. They meet the requirements there. Don't know of anything much we have said about the wash and roll itself. It's on a 1.19 acre lot, and the wash and I think some of the developers were going to join us tonight on this, in case you have any questions.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. Do we have a representative for the applicant present and wishing to speak?
We have John Odom. John, your line's been unmuted.
Thank you very much. This is John Odom here, and we should have Brian Peterson. He's one of the developers for the wash and roll as well. You may, if you can see him, you may unmute him here.
Okay, we've got John Odom, Jeremy Hall, and Brian Peterson. Your lines are all unmuted.
Hello, Brian Peterson here.
Hey, this is Jeremy Hall. If anybody's got any questions, I'm available.
Would either of you like to make any specific comments regarding staff's conditions of approval and staff's report? Mr. Hall or Mr. Peterson, do either of you have anything to add to staff's report?
No, sir. I don't. This is Jeremy Hall. No, sir. I don't at this time.
Mr. Peterson?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if everyone can hear me. I've had some bad connectivity issues, but Brian Peterson here. I don't have anything to add at this time other than, I think we had a really productive work session meeting, and we're looking forward to adding another location to the city of Gallatin. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. At this time, I'll open it to a public comment. If there's anyone in the public who would like to speak, comment on this item. It's number 6, the wash and roll amended preliminary master development plan. Josh, do we have anybody raising their hand?
At this time, if you are a member of the public and would like to speak on this item, please indicate so by using the raise your hand function located at the bottom of the screen, or hit *9 on your telephone if you are a phone-in member of the public. Again, raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen, or hit *9 on your telephone if you are called into the meeting. Mr. Chairman, at this time, no one has raised their hand indicating they'd like to speak on this item.
Very good. At this time, seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Also, Marianne, if you'll note for the record, Dr. Orgain has joined us, so we have all members present. I'll go ahead and, so we can have discussion on this item, I'll go ahead and place a motion on the floor to approve item number 6 with all the staff's conditions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Bill McCord, I was hoping that y'all would first make a motion is to determine whether or not this is a major or minor amendment to the
I'm sorry.
master plan.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
John, before you do that, I have a question for staff on one of the conditions of approval.
Yes, go ahead.
So condition 6, the facility shall comply with the cross connection control requirements. Is that talking about utilities or access in and out of the site? Kind of the issue we were talking about at the work session.
That's a statement that utilities always make.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just having had the conversation about connectivity to adjacent parcels, I just wanted to clarify that. So, all right, that's all I had.
Okay.
So we need to begin by, since this is a revision to the, or an amendment to a preliminary master development plan, we need to vote on whether it's a major or a minor amendment. I'll remind everyone that a major needs to be sent back to council and a minor is handled right here tonight at planning commission level. If anyone has any questions on the definitions of major or minor, raise your hand or speak up.
I got a question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wilson.
Is staff recommending a major or minor?
Mr. Wilson, I'm recommending a minor because the only change to the preliminary master development plan is actually moving this lot line to match the plat that we just did a month or so ago.
Okay, I'll move. We make it a minor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Wilson and I believe a second by Mr. Harris that it be a minor amendment. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Mary Ann, will you please take a roll call vote? All those in favor of being a minor amendment indicate by saying aye.
Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Love,
Aye.
Dr. Orgain,
Aye.
Mr. Strouder,
Aye.
Ms. Hibbler.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. And now, in order to have discussion on the item, I will make a motion to approve with staff's conditions of approval.
Second.
We have a second. Was that by Mr. Harris?
It was.
Okay. Getting good at these voice signatures. All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll have any discussion on that. I will lead with just one point, and I hate to beat a dead horse because I know we talked about this last time. I have no problem about the cross connection. I think that we have that Maharis Drive or whatever, that private drive, that serves the backage road or whatever we need. But I did drive by and look at the other wash and roll. Actually, I went through the other wash and roll because my truck was filthy. And I noticed that they actually do have a diversion lane. If you get up to the entrance and your truck doesn't fit, there is a lane on that one to veer off and exit instead of going through. Now, I understand that we talked about this during a work session. You could turn off the machinery and put a vehicle on through there if need be. But I just have to ask the question one more time. What if some knucklehead brings in a truck that's really too big and isn't going to fit through the gates? My only concern is, do they have to back all the way out onto McHarris Drive? Or is there a contingency to get them through the parking lot and turned around and go face forward back out onto Maharis Drive? I'll ask that to Mr. One of the applicant's representatives.
This is Brian Peterson here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, Mr. Peterson.
So there's a couple things, and I'd like to have Jeremy jump in on this as well, because we have a number of items that we can place to, first of all, educate and deter folks from being able to enter the site if their vehicle is too large. I'll let Jeremy talk about that. But I do also want to point out a few areas on the site plan that are hashed, and those were, well, I should say they're striped. And there's ample room for folks to pull into the site there, and instead of actually pulling left forward towards the gate, they can make a maneuver to go into the vacuum area and turn around and back out in that place. And, you know, we kind of have that area striped the way we do, so people have one last chance before they get to the tunnel, in which case we would shut the, you know, like you mentioned, we shut the equipment off and pull them through the tunnel. But again, I know your question was focused on a vehicle too large, so I'll let Jeremy jump in and discuss that piece.
All right, this is Jeremy Hall. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Hall.
Okay, so to add to what Brian Peterson was talking about right there by the hash, you see the ingress egress area. I mean the arrows, the one going in, one coming out. On sites similar to this that we've done in other developments, we've put a height bar there that the customers will drive under, letting them know if they're going to fit or not. Once they get under that, if you know it hits the height bar, they can pull in then to our vacuum area where the hashed painted marks are. If for some reason they make it past that and don't notice the height bar that they've just, you know, kind of bumped the top of their vehicle on, we've done a rollover curb just beyond the hashed right before the gates. So instead of like a big full on, you know, 6 to 8 inch curb, it's a low mountable, almost about the size of a speed bump, if you will, that my salesman or attendant can walk out and say, you know, a truck's just not going to make it. It's too big. They can roll over that curb at that point into the vacuum areas and then turn around and get out to McHarris safely.
Very good. That satisfies my concerns. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have a situation where people are backing out onto McHarris Drive.
Yes, sir. No, not at all.
Very good. Any other discussion or questions? Scrolling up and down the pictures here, I don't see anybody who wants to speak. Matt, did you have a comment?
I don't. I mean, that answered the concern about the being able to get out, but I don't have any other problems with this.
Well, seeing no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. Mary Ann, will you please take a motion or take a roll call of all those in favor of approval of item number with staff's 9 conditions of approval?
Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Love,
Aye.
Dr. Orgain,
Yes.
Mr. Strouder,
Aye.
Ms. Hibbler.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mary Ann. We'll move to item number 7, which is resolution number 2021-033, Northfield Church, a rezoning with preliminary master development plan. And this item will include a public comment. Which staff member is handling this item?
Jillian Ogden, staff planner.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jillian.
Next slide, please. The owner and applicant request the Planning Commission recommend approval to the Gallatin City Council to rezone 2 parcels totaling 17.82 acres from the R20 Low Density Residential District to the MRO Multiple Residential and Office District with a preliminary master development plan for Northfield Church on a little over 20 acres. This is located north of Nashville Pike and west of Pilot View. Next slide, please. A place of worship and its accessory uses and multifamily are permitted uses in the MRO zone district. And next slide, please. You can see here the parcel on the right adjacent to Pilot View is already zoned MRO. And the larger parcel, which includes the church facility, is zoned R20. So that's the portion that will be rezoned with this request tonight. Next slide, please. A conditional use permit was approved for the church in 1983, and there have been various site plans and amendments approved over the years. The expansion includes the remodel and expansion of the church space, the construction of a preschool and office building, the construction of a village's community area to provide housing for people in need, and other various accessory facilities. On the diagram, the brown buildings are existing and the blue are the proposed buildings. Since the work session, the applicant has added both natural and concrete walking paths throughout the development, including between the village's community and the church. They have also provided a sidewalk path from the church to the future intersection at Gordon's Crossing. Planning staff has added a condition of approval for the addition of a 6-foot sidewalk along Nashville Pike, as that is not shown here. The PMDP also includes alternative buffer yards along the rear of the site adjacent to city limits. They have allotted 20 feet of buffer space instead of 30 and 35 feet. The site is adjacent to predominantly wooded areas. Planning staff has also added condition that a buffer yard be required along Nashville Pike, as one is not shown here. Next slide, please. The master plan would require approval of alternative architecture, as the elevations do not meet the 70% brick and stone requirement, although the expansion matches the newer portions of the existing church, which includes EFIS facades. Some of the older buildings toward the back of the site are painted brick currently. Next slide, please. Also, since the work session, the applicant has reduced the number of residential units from 60 units to 32 total units and has removed one of the buildings. So instead of 5, there will be 4. The current request includes 4 two-story residential buildings instead of 3, with adjacent parking. Materials are now mostly stone and hardy board, as you can see on your screen. The rezoning request will require a public hearing. This item will go on to City Council with a Planning Commission recommendation for consideration. And there are some slides that the applicant, I believe, would like to go through after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. If we have a representative for the applicant online who wishes to speak, please raise your hand.
Okay. This is Mitchell Lasley with Greenland Design, and we also have Mr. Bill Jacoby with Northfield Church, if he could be unmuted as well. But as Ms. Jillian Ogden has described, with this project, we feel that we've incorporated a lot of staff and Planning Commission's thoughts and ideas. We have taken the unit count in the villages from 60 units and 5 buildings down to 32 units and 4 buildings. We have gone from 3 stories down to 2 stories to soften the impact to surrounding areas. And we have also provided interconnectivity with the sidewalk network. With all that said, we are in agreement to all comments with the exception of 2. The first one being the sidewalk along Nashville Pike. This project is located along a major thoroughfare. And while we are not providing sidewalks along Nashville Pike, we feel that we are providing an acceptable alternative. And like I said, we have Mr. Jacoby on the call who has prepared a presentation on this topic. If you want to take it away, Mr. Jacoby.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir, Mr. Jacoby, go ahead.
Our Chairman Purrier, members of the Planning Commission, first of all, thank you for the discussion we had a couple weeks ago. We found to be very helpful in thinking through, especially the connectivity of our community that we plan on the Northfield property. For those that were not present for that particular meeting, we have about 20 acres on our property currently, and for the last couple of years, we've been working on a vision of how we serve the Gallatin and Sumner County community in a more interactive way. In the past 4 years, we've had Night to Shine, which is a prom for special needs young adults and their families, when we become very connected with families in our community that have children with special needs. We've also done a lot of community events like Easter egg hunts and trunk or treats and things where we've really met a lot of the people in the community. The question we were trying to address is, how do we connect at a deeper level to serve the community in some of the areas that maybe there's some unmet needs? So this birthed the concept called the Sumner Center at Northfield, which is an existing building that we're going to repurpose and remodel to better serve the ministry of families that have special needs, young adults, and also families that are coming out of a crisis or an instability period in their life and maybe need a year or 2 to be able to afford a place of their own and some of the basic necessities of living and thriving as a family. So inside the Sumner Center, there will be things like services for food insecurities, so a food pantry that will be open during the week. There'll be a dental clinic that will open once a quarter, if not once every 2 months, periodically to help families with dental areas that may not be covered by TennCare, and then some other planning services on how to plan a family budget and save for things in the future, like housing, and how to find and succeed in jobs where you can afford to save the amount of money necessary to live in our county. Part of that work included the backside of our property and thinking about the area that is, and in just a second, I'll go through the slides, that is on the backside of our property. And one of the areas that we see a great need in Sumner County, which is a place to stay and a place to live during those year or two when you're employed, but can't yet afford that place to live on your own. And that's what birthed this concept called the Villages. The Villages is a connected community to be part of the Northfield campus. The purpose of providing these units is to give those families a year or two to save what's necessary to afford the ability to live on their own and to do it as part of a community. Many things you read today say that the number one thing that most families need when they're in an unhoused situation is to be part of a community. And that in and of itself, as well as the jobs and savings and things like that, helps them to thrive. So that's our desire, is to provide a community environment that's on our campus in our master plan that becomes part of Northfield and part of the things that we do as a ministry outreach to the Sumner County area. The the three key points that you all made in our last meeting. One were how to connect. So what I thought I would do is first share in these slides a view of the current church, and I'll go through them really quickly here. So starting with the one that's on the screen now, that's the front of the church as we see it today. And I'm going to go down from Hendersonville, down Gallatin, Nashville Pike toward Gallatin. So next slide, the entrance to the church and the main sign. Next slide. And you can see here in the back of the building is our gym building that we're recommitting to become the Summer Center at Northfield. That will really be the nerve center of our community activity for the back part of the campus. Next slide, please. Then coming up from Gallatin, going toward Hendersonville, you can see the grade that comes up from Pilot View up to the entrance that you just saw in the upper right-hand corner. You can see a bit of the green stripe on the building you just referred to. So it's a pretty steep grade and a pretty busy highway. Next slide, please. As you come further up, the leaves aren't out right now, but all the trees that are in front of this area will be all greened out. We'll provide some nice shade cover as well as cover for the area where we have the village residences that we mentioned in just a second ago. Next slide, please. And then as you come up to the top, you'll see that the entire area is really fully shaded from the road. So it's a nice area. It's a very open area, and it's an area in just a second I will show you how we'll connect back to the main part of our campus through some of the suggestions that the Planning Commission made in our meeting 2 weeks ago. Next slide, please. So one of the goals that you all laid out for us was how to provide safe passage for village residences from the village area into the new traffic light that will go in at Gordon Crossing and Nashville Pike. The recommendation or the suggestion in our last meeting was to have a sidewalk go up along Nashville Pike up to the entrance of the church, which is at Gordon Crossing. Due to this being located on a major thoroughfare, we'd like to propose an alternative sidewalk network to the idea of running something up Nashville Pike, for the reason that this is, first of all, a very, very busy road. All the cars are, the speed limit is 50, so people are typically going 55 or 60. It's not a lighted area, and it's a pretty steep grade. In fact, when we measured from the center point of the villages, down Pilot View, up Nashville Pike to where the crossing would be, it totaled 1,387 feet. So if you go to the next slide, our proposal is to leverage the existing, or what is now in the plans, the new sidewalk that will connect the village's units to the Sumner Center to come up through the Northfield parking lot with a sidewalk that would be lighted at all times, be in a safe area that is under surveillance. It's 55% shorter distance to get to that crosswalk at Gordon Crossing and Nashville Pike. The total distance is 892 feet. So it reduces the amount of steps as well as the grade that the residences would walk up from the village's area. Also recall that at least one of these buildings is going to be for young adults with special needs, where their families are helping them live independently as a way, just in case a family member or a parent or both parents were to pass away. There's a great need with special needs families to make sure their loved ones have the ability to live independently. So the distance that they have to travel, the lighted nature of it, and the safety and grade is really important here. So we think this alternative sidewalk network coming up through our campus that's fully lighted also not only helps with the grade, but also maintains the privacy of the villages, and it continues with the concept of connectivity. Next slide, please. This is just another view from where the sidewalk comes out from the area of the villages to the Sumner Center to show how it would go up to where the crosswalk would be. I've got a traffic light kind of cut and paste on there where you can see about where the traffic light would be on the Gordon Crossing intersection with Nashville Pike. Last slide, please. And then this is what it looks like on the master plan that we just got through talking about. The red line is the sidewalk area that would come up directly from the new concrete sidewalk that comes from the pavilion by the villages down by the Sumner Center, goes directly up to where the crosswalk would be going across Gordon Pike. So that was the main thing. I know that Jillian, thank you, mentioned that we reduced our density from 5 buildings to 4, 3 stories to 2, and integrated all the stone material to help it blend in with the background and the heritage of Gallatin. And hopefully you feel that we've been good listeners, and appreciate any further comment on this at this time.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll open it to a public comment. If there's anyone in the public who wishes to speak in regards to this item, please, Josh, will you request for someone who wishes to speak?
Yes, if you would like to speak on this item, item number 7 on tonight's agenda, please indicate so by using the raise your hand function located at the bottom of your screen, or hit *9 on your telephone if you are a call-in listener to our meeting this evening. Again, that's the raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen, or *9 on your telephone if you are a phone-in listener for tonight's meeting. Mr. Chairman, at this time, no one has raised their hand indicating they would like to speak on this item.
Very well. At this time, seeing none, we'll close the public comment. We'll entertain a motion so that we can get this on the floor for discussion.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is your motion to approve with all staff's conditions?
It is, yes. Motions to approve with all of staff's recommendations and conditions.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Orgain.
Mr. Breer,
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
this is Mitchell Leslie with Greenland Design. I just wanted to bring up another comment for discussion before we have a vote.
Certainly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overlook you. I thought that y'all were finished speaking, but please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The second comment that we're disagreeing with is the buffer requirement along Nashville Pike. The buffer will be difficult to achieve just due to the overhead power lines, the existing signage, and existing ditch line. There's not currently a buffer, and the church would like to keep the visibility that they currently have. And we would still be conforming to the rest of the site. And if Mr. Jacoby has anything else he'd like to add on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the visibility is important also for events we do. For example, when we do our food drive, that's where the lineup parts are. We do a lot of communication with our events with the community in that area. So the visibility from Nashville Pike is really important, especially given the pace of traffic that goes by there, and not only from a just aesthetic standpoint, but also from a visibility standpoint for our community events. We feel those buffers would inhibit those in a way that wouldn't be as productive as we'd like them to be.
All right, thank you. Currently, we have a motion on the floor. It's a motion for approval with all 8 of staff conditions. We have the motion by Matt Harris, and it was seconded by Dr. Orgain. Discussion on that.
I have a
motion.
question and a comment at some point.
Dr. Orgain, go ahead.
This is probably the most major thoroughfare heading into our city. And I don't know that I can support something where we're not putting sidewalks in. And I understand the developer. I think sidewalks primarily are for the community, not for the existing structure. And if they have a problem, they should have a trail or a sidewalk internally for their people. But I think in the future, we're going to expect a lot of pedestrian traffic between Hendersonville and Gallatin, and we should encourage that. And we don't encourage it by not having a sidewalk on 1,300 feet of Gallatin Road.
Well, I will weigh in. I completely agree with Dr. Orgain. I think that the applicant has come up with a creative idea for the sidewalk, the internal sidewalk, to service their residents and the members of the church, the residents of the village. But the sidewalk along Nashville Pike should be the applicant's contribution towards the infrastructure along the roadway. I had to walk from, I think it was Miracle Dodge up to the 2 Miracle dealerships. I had to walk between the 2 of them, drop my car off at one, and go up to the second one. And I walked along that shoulder, what is that, maybe a half mile or less? But I was really uneasy, and I realized how important sidewalks are along that major Nashville Pike. That traffic was coming by, and your back is to it. So you need separation with the right-of-way grass strip between it and the sidewalk. I understand it's a difficult terrain to work with, but I think the sidewalk and the buffer are very important elements. I will just mention while I'm speaking that the rest of the plan, the applicant really listened, and I like the architecture much better. They've lowered the height of the buildings, the number of units. They really took our comments and worked with them great, and I commend the plan.
It's a dream come true for our community. Very noble effort to reach out to special components of our community. And I know sidewalks are expensive, but we're not supposed to look at cost. We're supposed to look at what benefits the community. So,
Commissioners, this is Bill McCord. I want to emphasize, I realize you were showing some pictures of the slope of the sides or shoulders of the roads. So there certainly is an opportunity for the developer to place the sidewalk either in the right of way, or if slope's an issue, they could move it into the interior of the site within the buffer zone, even within a sidewalk easement. So there's a lot of flexibility as to where that sidewalk could be placed to extend from Pilot View to the west side of the property along Nashville Pike, both within and outside the right of way. And we also believe the buffer yard's important, and if it warrants it at the time of a final master development plan to avoid utilities, then they can look at alternatives at that time. But at this point, I think it's important to retain that here, and they could more specifically address the design of that buffer within strategic portions of their site at the time of FMDP and a plan amendment.
Yes, and Jillian Ogden, staff planner, that buffer can be pulled closer to the parking lot. Like there's a lot of options between the road and the parking lot to accommodate some kind of buffer yard.
Yeah, I agree. I think to not require the buffer yard and the sidewalk at the preliminary master development phase, I think would be a mistake. And I do want to talk a little bit about the architecture on the multifamily product in the back. I do appreciate the applicant listening. I think the architecture is much improved, the smaller buildings. And while it's still not the 70% brick requirement, it's my opinion that this architecture is going to fit in much better with the surroundings and the church buildings architecture. So I do appreciate you guys making the efforts on that. But for the sidewalk and the buffer yards, I think for now we need to keep them.
Yeah. So this is Bill Jacoby. Again, I just have a question about the major thoroughfare sidewalks. In general, I agree with you on sidewalks and development of that for the community, because we pick up the trash along this area all the time. I can tell you, you just don't feel safe with those cars ripping by, and you just got that shoulder and you're right on it and you're below the grade of it. So that was my only concern, is would anybody feel safe walking up that way? And I noticed that's my only concern, especially at night with no lights.
Kobe, I think that staff has provided some flexibility there. You can pull that sidewalk. You don't have to have it right up on the shoulder of the road. You can bring it down into that space between the parking lots and the shoulder, get it off onto your property more and out of the right of way, but not all the way over into your parking lot. That gets confusing for the general public trying to walk through. You know, are they trespassing? Are they going over into the church property, or are they on a community sidewalk? So I think it's pretty clear, we've heard from most members, that the sidewalks and the buffer yards are a necessity on this plan. We don't want to eliminate those. Does anyone else wish to comment on that?
I agree with, I agree with Mr. Harris and with what you all are saying as far as the buffer and sidewalks. And I also wanted to commend Northfield Church for being willing and being motivated to help people in need in our community. Also, and for listening to the concerns we had at our last meeting. I appreciate all those things. I feel much better about the smaller buildings for the villages, and appreciate your help for us.
Okay, I was going to say, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, I appreciate Northfield as well for doing this. This is an amazing opportunity for our community. As a person who does walk random places, and just thinking about, not everyone might not have a car or a bicycle to feel safe, walking on the edge of a shoulder versus walking on a sidewalk next to a busy street. I'd rather be on a sidewalk where I could jump maybe away from traffic if it happens, but I mean, it's just the best. It's just, it's not the safest, but at least the sidewalk is safer than walking on the actual roadway. So, I mean, it is a challenge, and there's a lot of places in Gallatin, but we're trying to address that just, as a holistic perspective for people who don't always drive a vehicle. So it's something to work with, and I'm sure the planning some to work with, I know. So it looks like an inconvenience, but then to the community that you're serving and the rest of the community as well, it'd probably be a big improvement, and we appreciate you considering that.
One last question I'd like to ask, direct this question to staff. I looked through the staff report, and it talked about parking requirements, but I believe that the tables that it showed talked about the parking requirements for a church, and I was trying to interpret what the parking requirements are for the buildings, the residential buildings. Best I can tell, there's 32 units, and I count roughly 60 spaces, but I may be off on that. I'm trying to count on a small picture. My question to staff, have you looked at that? Is there adequate parking for the number of apartment residential units?
Yes. So for the multifamily, for 2 bedrooms, they have a minimum of 2 spaces. And so if they only have 32 units, they have a little over 60 spaces in that area. So they should be well within what they're required to have.
Very good. Any other discussion on this motion that's before us? Again, I'll repeat the motion by Matt Harris was to approve with all 8 staff conditions, and that was seconded by Dr. Orgain.
Mr. Perry,
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I concur with your thoughts. And secondly, I think a sidewalk would be a deterrent to some of those people who were speeding down Gallatin Road. If it were off the thoroughfare, with traffic there, people have a tendency to see people walking and they'll slow down as opposed to the speed that they're traveling currently.
And that's coming from Mr. Straw, that has experience on the subject. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Mary Ann, you take a roll call vote. All those in favor of approval with all staff conditions of approval indicate by saying aye.
Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Dr. Orgain,
Yes.
Mr. Strouder,
Aye.
Ms. Hibbler.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mary Ann. We'll move on to item number 8, which is resolution number 2021-034. Holloway Investments, it's a rezoning with preliminary master development plan. Which staff member is presenting this item?
Dustin Shane, staff planner.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. So this is the Holloway Investments rezone with PMDP. As you can see, it's located on West Eastland, not too far from downtown. It is currently zoned CG, surrounded by CG zoning. Applicant is requesting to rezone to R6. You can see just to the west, there is significant levels of R6 already present. And the comp plan does support the rezoning to R6, so this would not be spot zoning. What they're proposing is a duplex with a shared drive right off West Eastland. They're asking for an exception to the buffer yard ordinance. They would like to do type 10s instead of type 20s that are required. And we've got a condition actually in the resolution that says that the type 10s are acceptable for the east and the west boundaries, because if you did the type 20s, you wouldn't have enough room to develop. But then on the north and south, we still want to have the code required buffer yards of a type 15 on the north and a type 20 on the south. They're also going to need to do some work on the parking area. We looked at it, and there's not going to be enough room there for backing out and maneuvering into the spaces. And also, we're going to need to see a van accessible handicap space there. So then, and that's a condition on the resolution. These are the type of architecture ideas that they're proposing. Kind of two different styles, two different directions they might go. They will be requesting an alternative architecture plan when the time comes with the FMDP. And this will go to council with your recommendation because it's a rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. Do we have a representative on behalf of the applicant present?
Yes, sir. Mitchell Lastly with Greenlit Design, and we are in agreement with all of staff comments.
Okay, thank you, Mitchell. At this time, I'll open a public hearing or public comment on item number 8, Holloway Investments rezoning with preliminary master development plan. Josh, do we have anybody who wishes to speak?
If you would like to speak on this item, please indicate so by using the raise your hand function located at the bottom of the screen, or hitting *9 if you are a phone-in caller for tonight's meeting. Again, that's the raise your hand function located at the bottom of the screen, or *9 on your telephone if you are a call-in listener to tonight's meeting. Mr. Chairman, at this time, no one has indicated they'd like to speak on this agenda item.
Thank you, Josh. At this time, I'll close the public comment and I will entertain a motion on item number 8 in order to get it on the table for discussion. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with all 4 of staff's recommendations.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we had, I believe, Ms. Councilwoman Love seconded it. beat you to the punch. So we have a motion on the floor by Matt Harris, seconded by Councilwoman Love. Discussion on that motion?
A question for staff. The applicant's request for the alternative architecture less than 70% brick, is the intention that this will come back with a final master development plan with the architecture they're requesting and then approve it at that time, or by approving this item, are we granting the variance before we see the proposed architecture?
I guess I would say that they will have to receive the final alternative plan at the FMDP stage, and that they're just submitting these as kind of a preparatory to that, to get the planning commission to understand what they intend to do.
Okay, but by approving this evening, we're not granting an alternate tonight, or correct, or are we?
I do believe that's actually one of the conditions, so we would need to strike that if you all are not prepared to do that.
I didn't see it in the conditions of approval. Or is that in them?
So I don't have the conditions. Can somebody look and see which number that is? I believe what I said was a note should go on the plan saying an alternative architecture plan had been approved, but I'll need to figure out which number that is.
Yeah, make sure I have the right one. So I'm missing. Yeah, condition 1 was provide a type 15 buffer yard along the northern property and the 20-foot buffer on the rear. 2 was redesign drive aisles in the parking lot, van accessible, etc. 3 was reference zone 2021-0032 on the plans. And then 4 was submit 1 corrected original digital copy of the preliminary master development plan. That's all that was there.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I didn't do that then. So this would not be approving that.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we're not granting exceptions to the ordinance for 70% brick without seeing the actual architecture that's being proposed. So if that's the case, then I'm comfortable with it.
Mr. Harris or other members of the Planning Commission, is there a preference on the architectural style between the two that's been presented? They're outside of the materials, they are very different from each other. And if there was a preference that we could help guide the applicant towards through the development process, we'd be happy to work with you and work with them on the final architecture.
Yeah, not my preference would be, my least favorite is the one that's currently on the screen. If you want to go to the flop to the other, that I think fits the character of that area and kind of where it's going better. If I had to just tell you a preference of one or the other, and just be clear, I'm not opposed to a variance on the the brick requirement. I just want to make sure we know what we're voting on.
I agree.
I agree as well.
So I have a question for, go ahead, Albert.
No, I agree with the last rendering. I think it looks better than the first one.
I agree also.
So I have a question for Dustin. Condition number 2 is redesign the drive aisles and parking lot to include 1 van accessible handicap space and comply with the requirement dimensions per Article 11 GZO. Basically, these lots are just, they're residential. They're just a duplex on each lot. I've never seen that before. Why are we requiring a van, handicap accessible spot on a residential property?
Bill, do you have anything to say on that?
These are duplexes. They're multifamily. So they fall under the multifamily. So that's what the reason we need to put a request that a handicap space be included. There are exceptions that they can ask for, variances or variations from that. We could address that at the final master development plan. As far as the parking lot goes, the depth of the parking drive aisles is not sufficient and the parking spaces are not sufficient. And so what will have to happen is the structural, if they want to keep the parking in the front, will need to be pushed back or moved to the south to accommodate the expanded parking area.
Okay, does condition 2, so they probably need to push these units further back off the street. Does condition 2 accomplish that? Is that satisfactorily worded to cover that?
Condition 2 and the requirement for the buffer yard in the front together would push it further south from the street.
Okay. That answers my questions. Any other questions or comments or concerns? Seeing none, failed to write down who made the motion. Who made the motion on this? Matt.
Yep.
Seconded by Councilwoman Love. So we have a motion by Matt Harris to approve with all 4 staff's conditions. Seconded by Councilwoman Love. Seeing no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. Mary Ann, will you take a roll call vote? All in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson, Councilwoman Love,
Aye.
Dr. Orgain,
Yes.
Mr. Strouser,
Aye.
Ms. Hibler.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. With that, we will move on to item number 9, which is resolution number 2021-036, Vinewood Townhomes, a preliminary master development plan. Which staff member is presenting this item?
Jillian Ogden, staff planner.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jillian.
Next slide, please. The owner and applicant request approval of an amended preliminary master development plan for the Lowe's Center and a preliminary master development plan for the Vinewood Townhomes on a 7.24 acre lot and a portion of a 3.9 acre lot zoned MRO and zoned PGC, located south of Nashville Pike and east of Browns Lane. This is the property that is located behind the Lowe's off of Nashville Pike. Lot 2 is the triangle right behind Lowe's, and Lot 3 is next to Lowe's. Lot 2 will include the townhomes that are proposed, and a portion of Lot 3 will be used for stormwater purposes only. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The proposal includes 50 townhomes on fee simple lots to be accessed by a private road off of Browns Lane. Because the townhomes are fee simple lots, exceptions to lot sizes and setbacks will be required due to the type of development and the existing MRO zoning. The requested lot size is 1,872 square feet, which is similar to other recent townhome developments. However, due to the amount of open space remaining, at least 6,307 square feet is still provided per lot. So versus them being included in the individual lots, that's with the open space. This is a similar layout and design as the recently approved Noble Park townhomes. Next slide, please. As was mentioned at the previous meeting, this site will be graded. A bunch of fill will be removed from this site, so this will go down significantly in order to have a flat surface to construct the townhomes. Next slide, please. Because the buffer yards will use existing vegetation to the east and the south and will supplement additional evergreens where necessary. And there will be some landscaping along the shared Lowe's boundary. A part of that landscaping will likely go on to lot 3 due to the area where the site narrows to be able to fit the private drive as well as the sidewalk to accommodate all of those uses right there. But they are showing buffer yards on either side of that area. Parking will be accommodated through garages and driveways. Driveways will be at least 20 feet long, not including the adjacent sidewalk to fit a vehicle as required. Next slide, please. The proposed elevations show at least 70% brick and stone on all facades. Other materials used include lap siding, board and batten siding, and shake siding, but they are now meeting the 70% brick or stone requirement. Next slide, please. The PMDP request will require a public hearing. This item will go on to City Council with a Planning Commission recommendation for consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to emphasize the uniqueness about this property is that it's amending the Lowe's preliminary master development plan, and it's also approving a preliminary master development plan. So the strategy that we would recommend that you take is that the amendment to the Lowe's master plan be considered and or voted on as a minor amendment to that plan, and as a regular amendment, because there is no master plan for the balance of the lot where the residences will be constructed. But that would be a regular amendment, and it wouldn't be left to the discretion. It would still need to go to council for approval because there's not an approved preliminary plan on that lot. So I know that you can probably make that in one motion, but if you need help with that, I'll be glad to help whoever makes that motion, if that's the will of the body.
All right. Thank you, Bill. It's Bill McCord, City Planner. At this time, I'll open a public comment. Is there anybody, Josh, do we have anybody in the public who wishes to speak in regards to item number 9, Vinewood Townhomes?
Members of the public, if you would like to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand function located at the bottom of the screen, or hit *9 on your telephone to let me know that you would like to speak on this item if you are joining us via telephone. Mr. Chairman, we do have one individual that has raised their hand at this time, Michelle and or Pascal. Michelle or Pascal?
Okay, and before I have Ms. Pascal speak, I want the applicant's representative to know I haven't forgotten you. I did forget you for a moment, but we'll get back to you in just a moment after we have the public comment. Michelle, if you go ahead, please. Josh, I don't believe we have a connection.
Michelle, if you want to try calling in the number, it seems like we're having a bad connection using your computer.
Perhaps we could hear from the owner's representative, the applicant's representative, while we wait.
Well, the problem is I've opened a public comment. I don't know that.
Fair enough.
I suppose you could close the public comment and open it back up, considering this technical difficulty issue we have. It's kind of unusual to proceed.
Okay, very good. I needed cover to do that. I will suspend the public comment while we wait for Ms. Jovance to get a better connection, and we'll hear from the representative for the applicant.
Yes, this is Megan Heisler with Greenwood Design, and we are agreeing with all the comments.
Megan, I have a question, just to make sure I understood, if I heard correctly last time, the site as it is today, you guys are proposing to lower the grade by something in the order of about 10 feet. Is that correct?
So we are showing that we will excavate to about elevation of 405, and the top is at 417, so almost 12 feet of fill.
Okay.
So yeah, we will be removing that.
How at that elevation, how is that compared to the adjacent townhomes to the south? I think it's still higher, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, we're still dropping a bit. Like even on our site where the 405 contour is, the outskirts, the property line is showing 385.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're still dropping a pretty good bit.
Okay.
All right. Councilwoman Love?
Thank you. I didn't hear yet, are these to be rented or owned? And also they seem to be quite different from the cottages that are already adjacent to those. Will there be a good amount of buffering in between those sets of townhomes?
So our client has said that it will be owned, and there is an existing tree line that's around the property line to the south and the east. So we would be keeping all that existing vegetation.
Okay, so you did say they'll be owned. They're not going to be rentals.
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Before we get too much into deliberation, I want to make sure that we get the public comment input as well. So, Josh, do we have a better connection with Michelle Javon?
Michelle or Pascal, if you're there, if you want to try speaking again, we'll see if the connection's any better.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me okay? Enter your participant's ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You have joined the meeting as an attendee and will be muted throughout.
Michelle?
I think she is caller of the last 444. Ooh. Okay, let's mute one of those. Michelle, are you the caller 368 or 444? Either way, hit *6 on your telephone and that'll unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Very clearly. That's much better.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you. It's Michelle Juvant, 1335 Long Hollow Pike. I just had a couple of questions. Sorry, it seems like I'm echoing. This is distracting. Okay. The change from the original plan, I was curious what that was, because I guess it used to be a Lowe's PMDP, and it's being changed from that. So if it used to be something commercial that was planned to be there originally, and then also, it just seems like a very odd place to put residences, because you're right behind a big Lowe's store, and then it sounds like it's going to be down with a big cliff up behind it on the other side. So I'm kind of confused about that, if it's going to be up above or if it's going to be down at the level of the Lowe's store. And then that just seems like the people that are going to be living in those residences aren't going to have any sunlight, if that is the case, because you're just kind of down in the bottom of a cliff with a big giant store on the other side. So just as, quality of life for people who are going to be living in the townhomes, it doesn't seem like a sort of a pleasant location for homes. And that's just my opinion, but that was all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Josh, do we have anyone else who would like to add speak in the public comment section?
At this time, if you are a member of the public and would like to speak on this item, please indicate so by using the raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen or hitting *9 on your telephone to let me know that you would like to speak on this item. And just so we're clear, Michelle, okay, there we go. Mr. Purrier, at this time, no one else has indicated they would like to speak on this item.
Thank you, Josh. At this time, I will close the public comment and we'll resume discussion. We don't have a motion on the floor yet.
I'm going to make a motion to approve, including staff's 8 conditions approval, but I'd also like to add a 9th condition of approval, which is to revise the site plan sheet 3.0 to reflect the sidewalk that's shown on the other pages in front of lots 46 through 50.
I second that.
Mr. Harris, can you just repeat that?
Sure. So adding a ninth condition of approval, that they revise the site plan, which is sheet 3.0, to show the sidewalk in front of lots 46 through 50 as it is drawn on the other pages.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Bill McCord. I was wondering if you were going to make a motion to consider the amendment as a minor amendment and the regular master plan for the multifamily units as a regular plan amendment.
Thank you, Bill. I'm confused on that. We need to have one motion regarding the Lowe's master plan to change it and then a separate motion regarding this.
That would be fine. You could just make a motion to approve on lot 3 as a minor amendment to the Lowe's master plan. And then make another motion to make the other we'll present them both to the city council just for information purposes, but to make the multifamily units a regular item, because it hasn't been to council with a master plan on this lot.
Okay. Before we do that, I think Michelle did raise a good point. Ms. Javance raised one good point. I don't know what the Lowe's site plan shows. What are we amending it from?
Yes, I can answer that. So it's only for the very back portion of that lot. There's a pretty standard commercial building that's proposed in the middle of that lot. And I believe the back portion was always intended to be used for stormwater or some kind of open space. So you're really just amending it to include it for the stormwater purposes for this lot. You're not amending the whole lot, if that makes sense.
It does, yep.
There's still a commercial building theoretically proposed on there someday, but it doesn't encroach where this stormwater is.
Mr. Harris, would you consider, just for the time being, would you consider withdrawing your motion that you carefully worded so that we can first vote on a motion to amend the Lowe's?
So withdrawn.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my second.
Thanks. Then I'll entertain a motion to move I'll make a motion that the change to the Lowe's site plan is considered a minor change.
I'll second
rather
it.
than opposed to a major. We have a second by was that the second by Albert?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is there any discussion about the major versus minor change to the Lowe's site plan?
I do have a question. So is from residential to commercial that area that they're doing? Is that what the amendment, the change is? Sorry.
They're just using the back portion of this lot for some of the stormwater for the townhomes. I wouldn't call that use residential. And the rest of the lot, I mean, it's zoned PGC, so it's not residentially zoned, but they will have to get easements and everything to utilize portions of this lot for the stormwater.
Okay, thank you.
So if there's no other discussion, look, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of it being considered a minor amendment, indicate by saying aye. Mary Ann, take a roll call vote.
Yes, Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Dr. Orgain,
Yes.
Mr. Strouser,
Aye.
Ms. Hibbler.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. Now, Matt, if you care to restate your motion.
But I guess before I can restate the motion, Mr. McCord, were you suggesting yet another motion to make this a regular amendment for something else for council, or did I misunderstand?
No, the commission acted on the amendment to the Lowe's plan. So I would assume that now the committee or the commission is wanting to make a recommendation of a master development plan to council for the main lot. Let's call it that, the southerly lot.
So is it lot 3? Is that what it's called?
It's lot 2.
Lot 2. Okay. Lot 2 is the lot they're proposing the townhomes on.
Yes.
Okay. So I will make a motion to approve the applicant's request for lot 2 with all 8 of staff's conditions of approval, and adding the 9th condition of approval to revise the site plan sheet C 3.0 to match the other sheets by adding the sidewalk in front of lots 46 through 50.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Harrison, seconded by Albert Strauber, I believe. Councilwoman Love.
Thank
Discussion.
you. Do we have any kind of information on the traffic impact this will add to Browns Lane?
At this time, we do not.
Do we need that? It seems like we have a lot of condos and homes that have been placed on that road.
Ms. Love, I can give you a general answer, is that each condominium will generate an average of about 6.5 trips per day per unit. And those would be assigned to Browns Lane. If engineering determines it's necessary to provide a traffic study, they will do that at the final master development plan stage. This may be an exempt project from having to provide a traffic study simply because it's not a large project.
My comment on that is that while I am concerned about traffic in general, the proximity of this particular project, being that the majority of this traffic is going to exit the neighborhood to the right and intersect Nashville Pike just a few hundred feet or a couple of yards down the road, I don't see where the traffic would be a negative impact to the Browns Lane as it goes farther back. But that just be my observation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I think.
No, go ahead, Matt.
I think going back to Mr. Juvant's question or observation on the height of the property. So this sort of as we're talking about, this is the triangle parcel that's behind Lowe's. So this sits up higher than the Lowe's building. So once the grade is cut down 10, 12 feet, it'll lower it down. You know, in my opinion, it's an awkward piece of property. You guys might remember probably last year this was proposed to be a hotel, which was a poor use of the property, in my opinion. I'm not sure what much you could do with it other than what they're proposing. It's adjacent to other townhomes and similar uses of the property, but I don't, for this piece of property, it's probably the best use.
I completely agree. I would assume that the residents adjacent, I think it's called the cottages next to them,
Yes.
are probably pretty happy with this solution, certainly as opposed to a multi-story hotel.
Yeah. Well, I think that's evident by when it was proposed to be a hotel. I think we had 2 hours of public comment in opposition to it, and I think it's telling that this evening we have no opposition to it. So I would take that as a positive sign for the adjacent neighbors.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then I'll call for a vote. We have a motion on the floor by Matt Harris that is approval of item number 9 in regards to lot 2 with all 8 staff's conditions, and the 9th condition is he added was to revise the site plan sheet page 3.0 to show the sidewalk in front of lots 46 through 50 as shown on the other pages. And it was seconded by Albert Strada. I'll call for the roll call vote. Mary Ann, take a roll call vote. All in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Mr. Prayer.
Yes, sir. Chair Prayer. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it was second by Dr. Orgain.
Oh, did Dr. Orgain second that? I'm sorry.
It did. I did.
Sorry, I thought it was Mr. Strather also.
I didn't want to interrupt.
All right. So all in, Mary Ann, if you'll take a roll call vote, please.
Thanks, Albert.
Chair Prayer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Love.
Yes.
Dr. Orgain.
Yes.
Mr. Strouder.
Aye.
Ms. Hibler.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 10, which is resolution number 2021-037, Andy's Frozen Custard. Amended preliminary master development plan and a revised final master development plan. And this one will come with a public comment. And just a quick question for staff before I get started. This is an amended preliminary master development plan. Do you need a motion to vote on whether it's a major or a minor amendment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So which staff member is presenting this item?
Dustin Shane, staff planner.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. So this is the amended PMDP/FMDP for Andy's Frozen Custard. It'll be located on the south side of Nashville Pike, west of Browns Lane, on a private street across from the new Subaru dealership. The piece of property is zoned PGC. It's surrounded by other PGC zonings. They are proposing basically a 1,900 square foot building, a parking lot, and the hatched area you see there is permeable pavers. They are asking for parking over what they're allotted per code, so they're complying with the excess parking provision and making that into permeable pavers. They're also including a drive-through that goes around the northern part of the site there. This is their drainage plan showing that they're going to have a bioretention pond there on the eastern side of the property. It's going to drain into a ditch along Nashville Pike. One thing we do need is a sidewalk connection to the main building with a crosswalk. And we also would like these are conditions of approval. We'd also like them to plat this piece of property and remove some easements, and then also add an easement for some of the water coming in from the south. For the landscaping, they are asking for an alternative. On the north side of the site, they've got a GDE easement that's going to prevent them from planting large trees. So they're offering shrubs along that boundary. One thing we do need, though, is since they are asking for the excess parking, we would like them to provide the code required level of landscaping in the parking area based on the amount of parking they're asking for. So that is a condition of approval. The elevations do meet the architectural standards because of the level of brick they have. Also, we did work with the applicant to get the signage to fit within the regs. So that has been done. And that's what you see here. This is the latest update. So this item will go to council with your recommendation. Thank you. Well, excuse me, if you voted as a major, it will go to council, and we do recommend it as such.
Thank you. You had me thrown there for a minute. Okay. So do we have a representative on behalf of the applicant present?
Yes, this is Megan Heisler again with Greenwood Design. And we are agreeing with all the comments.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. I'll open this to I'll open public comment on this item. Josh?
If you are a member of the public and would like to speak on this item, please indicate so by using the raise your hand function located at the bottom of the screen. It should have a small mitten type hand that you can hit, and it will let me know you would like to speak on this item. Or if you are a phone-in caller, hit *9 on your telephone, and it will let me know that you would like to speak on this item. Mr. Chairman, at this time, no one has indicated they'd like to speak on this item.
All right, thank you, Josh. At this time, I'll close the public comment. And I'll entertain a motion as to whether this is a major or a minor amendment.
I move it be a minor. A major, excuse me.
Okay, we have a motion that it be a major amendment by Mr. Wilson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Hibble. So discussion, I'll lead off and ask, please remind me, what was this is an amended preliminary master development plan. What does the prior development plan look like? Bring that up on the screen.
It was part of Woods Crossing. Let me pull up the plat here.
The Planning Commission previously approved, it was a auto repair, a tire place on this lot previously about 2 years ago. So we can pull that up as well.
Yeah, if we can pull that up, I'll remind everybody to my understanding of major versus a minor is it is a major if it's a significant change in use, circulation, or an increase in density. Staff, jump in there if I'm missing one. I don't believe architecture.
Would you like us to pull up the old PMDP?
I think if we're trying to decide whether it's major or minor, we need to look at the old PMDP. Yeah.
Searching for it now.
Okay. I mean, while they're searching, I'll just say I like this site plan. I like the Andy's frozen custard plan here, but the question before us on this motion is whether it's a major or minor and whether it needs to go to city council.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, there are a number of exceptions they're also asking for, and that's the opportunity for elevating it to a major plan if you determine that those are significant.
Okay. Well, you've already got it. We'll go ahead and look at it if you've found it.
Dustin, I'm going to take over sharing screen for a second. This site was previously approved for a tire discounters. It was an amended PMDP, FMDP for tire discounters. This is a very thorough What's being displayed on the screen right now is what was previously approved for this site. This is the elevation that would face into the site from Nashville Pike, including the typical drive-up bays, facade, and then the corner office. This is the proposed layout of the site with the building, parking located between the building, Nashville Pike, and then one entrance off of this side road, and then a horseshoe-shaped entrance off the rear of the site. So there was no interconnectivity on the site between, I'd say, the front parking and the rear service area of this lot. Again, this is what was previously approved on the site. This is what the Planning Commission is being asked to amend tonight.
Okay.
The building now is much smaller, but the parking lot is much larger.
Very good. Well, based on that, I mean, thank you, Josh. You can take that slide down. I mean, based on that, it's clearly a change of use, change of circulation, and there's a lot of exceptions asked, so I certainly support the motion that's on the floor for it to be a major amendment. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then we'll call for the vote. All in favor of being a major amendment indicate by saying aye. Mary Ann, will you take a roll call vote?
Yes. Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Dr. Orgain,
Yes.
Mrs. Strouser,
Aye.
Ms. Hibbler.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. It's considered a major amendment. We'll go before council. So in regards to the revised final master development plan before us, do I hear a motion for item number 10 to get it on the floor for discussion?
So moved.
A motion to approve by Dr. Orgain. Dr. Orgain, is that with a motion to approve with all of 9 staff's conditions of approval?
All 9 staff recommendations.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Strother. Discussion?
Can somebody remind me if this is the one that was brought up a few weeks ago about the lighting in the signage?
Yep.
And exactly what's been done to change that?
Councilwoman Love, we've specifically worked with the designer and the developer of this site to create a shielded light, so there will be no exposed bulbs. It'll be it will be an LED light strip that's covered by a piece of the building facade, and that'll make it glow instead of the naked bulb that would have been there otherwise with the lighting around the base of the unit. And we also worked with the applicant to come up with a signage plan that's not displayed on the screen, but with a signage plan that does meet City of Gallatin regulations.
So you believe that they've satisfied those requirements?
We believe so, and I did not author the staff report, but I'm fairly certain that the staff report covered the architectural designs and the photometric lighting standards, and that it is our belief that the applicant has met the standards of the City of Gallatin.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that photometric they submitted did meet the code requirements.
Okay, so Commission, what I want y'all to understand is that because y'all made a recommendation to the council that this FMDP will by the default also be the preliminary master development plan. So we're not going to bring it back to you. It will reside as an FMDP in your decision. It's just the PMDP part of it, which is again the same plan, will have to go to council.
Mr. McCoy, you're saying because we voted it a major amendment, it doesn't come back to us, where if it was a minor, we would weigh in on the final plan? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you would do both. If you determined it was a minor, then you would decide the preliminary and final master development plan tonight. But since y'all decided that it is a major amendment to the plan, to the preliminary master development plan, that portion of it has to go to the council. But we're not going to bring back after council deals with it. Let's assume that they approve it. We're not going to then bring back the final master development plan for y'all to vote on again. Because this includes both the preliminary and final master plan. We normally don't do that, but we don't usually have that situation arise, but.
Okay.
Okay.
I had one question regarding the sign. There was a lot of discussion at work. By the way, I like this layout. I like the sign, like everything about it. Did we decide to use the area of the polygon outline of the sign as the square footage of the sign rather than a box rectangle that it fits within? And if so, does that need to be included in a condition of approval, or is that in compliance with the sign ordinance as it's written?
Mr. Puryear, that was the intent of the discussion that we've had with Augie Nichols with Andy's Frozen Custard. And it was deemed that it was not necessary to do a alternative sign plan for this project because they were able to shrink the signage down to meet the signage regulations of the city of Gallatin. By doing so, it doesn't mean that we're approving the signage. It just means that the 81 square feet that they get for building signage, they will be submitting a separate signage permit to the planning department that shows exactly the 81 square feet and how they plan on distributing that across the building on both sides of the fin.
Okay, because C, I'm looking on this plan, signage C, that's in Charlie up top, is repeated down there in F. And I just want to make sure that doesn't exceed the signage allowance. But it sounds like y'all are on top of it. We have a motion on the floor by Dr. Orgain. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
To approve with all non-staff conditions of approval, and it was seconded by Albert Strada. If there's no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. Mary Ann, will you take a roll call vote? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Yes. Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Dr. Orgain,
Yes.
Mr. Strouder,
Yes.
Ms. Hibble.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Are they going to give out free samples?
With that, we'll
Only
move on.
this one.
Didn't add that condition.
Move on to the
motion.
The final item on our agenda is resolution number 2021-035, Hangar Unlimited, 860 and 870 North Blue Jay Way. It's a rezoning with preliminary master development plan. Which staff member is presenting this item?
Dustin Shane, staff planner.
Dustin?
All right, so this is the Hangar Unlimited rezoning in PMDP. It's located at 860 and 870 Blue Jay Way. It's east of Lowe's and right across from the DMV. They're proposing to rezone the two parcels from MRO to PGC. You can see there's PGC just to the west and north adjacent to them. and the comp plan does support this rezoning. So it's going to come in 2 phases. The first phase is going to be a 11,000 square foot high-end vehicular sales establishment, also with auto detailing and a showroom type space inside. The phase 2 will include general retail of about 5,800 square feet and a restaurant of about 2,500 square feet to be built to the south of the auto building. This is their drainage plan. It's going to infiltrate to a southeast water quality area and then out to eventually to the creek. This is their architecture they're proposing. It will be substantially similar to what exists just to the north and will meet the brick and stone requirement. They addressed all of our conditions that we had from the check print from the work session meeting. They've rearranged some of the things around the site just a little bit, some of the parking and the drive aisle behind, which will provide access for some of the cars to get into the showroom area. One issue that was raised at work session was what if in the future this user vacates the premises and we get a new user that wants to put a used car lot, because technically PGC would allow that. So one of the things that the planning department thought up was to avoid more intrusive uses in the future, you could put a condition on that says that because of the floodplain, which is just across the road here, any use that requires a heavy outdoor display area could be precluded in the future. I've got some draft language here that I could give you for a condition, and if you'd like to do that. So again, this rezoning will go to council with Planning Commission's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, Justin, just a quick question to make sure I understand before we hear from the applicant. Am I reading this correctly, that your staff report has no conditions of approval?
That's correct. They basically, us and engineering, met all of the corrections that we put. As I said, we could add something on here just to try to head off any more intrusive uses in the future, but otherwise we didn't have any conditions.
Okay, very good. Do we have a representative for the applicant present?
This is Jim Harrison with CSDG. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Jim.
All right, great. We would agree with that condition as Dustin mentioned. And of course, appreciate staff helping us to work through this. Just wanted to be on the call in case there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. At this time, I'll open it to this item. I'll open a public comment on item number 11, Hangar Unlimited on North Blue Jay Way. Josh?
If you would like to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand function located at the bottom of your screen, or hit *9 on your telephone. It will let me know that you would like to speak on this item, which is item number 11 on tonight's Planning Commission agenda. Again, that's the raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen, or hit *9 on your telephone, and that will let me know you would like to speak on this item. Mr. Chairman, at this time, no one has indicated they'd like to speak.
Thank you, Josh. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. And before we try to make a motion to put this on the floor, Dustin, would you mind repeating the one potential condition that you added or discussed adding?
Yes, and Bill, if you want to make any adjustments to this is what I came up with. So it would state, because of this development's proximity to a floodplain, any future users are restricted from using the parking area primarily as outdoor sales inventory display.
Okay. I couldn't write that fast, but I know Mary Ann can. So,
well, there's not any restriction from having in this zoning district any use like that was described for, say, a car lot, for example, which is permitted and that would be permitted in this zoning district, because the property is not in the floodplain, and across the street is, part of the property across the street is. So it's not really relevant to this zoning on the property, but be aware that this would be a specialty auto vehicular sales place. And even though it may deal with customized cars or antique cars or whatever, it doesn't mean that it's limited to that. You can't just say, oh, well, you can sell these kind of cars, but you can't sell these kind of cars. So, but that's really not really relevant. It's just simply because the floodplain's across the road. They do
Well,
have retention basin on this property. So that
Ms.
will.
Love had concerns last time about an outdoor car lot down there, and I think this is a great option. Are you saying that it wouldn't hold up in court? Is that what you're saying?
Well, and the attorney might want to mention it doesn't have a rational nexus for it. If it were in the flood zone, you might want to consider that, but it's not.
I have a hard time with it restricting it based on a flood zone being across the street if it's not on the property. That doesn't make sense.
Really, what you're dealing with here is you got these parking spaces, especially the ones in front of the building there, that the 16, the 12, the 5, is that if you had some other use in there, like a restaurant or something like that, you're still parking a vehicle in that area, whether it has a sign for sale or it's parked there because it's a private vehicle that someone's going to be moving in an hour or whatever. It's still parked on that, in that portion of the property. They wouldn't be allowed to park in the landscape area, and they couldn't display vehicles in the landscape area, buffer zone. So we'll have to make sure we guard that. We have a lot of violations of that occurring around town.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim Harrison. Can I add something real quick?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Harrison.
We added a note on the front of this plan, and I think it probably, to me, it says this better than anything else. And our primary showroom where the cars are going to reside is inside the building. I think that reflects the unique nature of the vehicles that are being sold as part of this. And I don't know if it's possible, but we added that to the PMDP because we really desire that to be a condition of the approval. I don't know if that's possible to make that. We really don't have any other intent to make this anything but a showroom for exotic vehicles, and that's the purpose for this. So, but I think having the vehicles inside the showroom is unique. I'm not aware of any kind of used car lot that displays cars like that.
Well, Bill, can we require internal showroom only? Or are you saying that's just as unacceptable?
If they're willing to offer that, I mean, that's a restriction that they are willing to put on and include as part of their master plan. That's fine. I tell you what, it eventually becomes a enforcement issue, and if they sell to somebody else, they're going to either have to closely inspect that plan to see that restriction. I'm not, and to go down there and police it in such a way that to try to determine which vehicles for sale and which ones parked there for other business related purposes is not going to be a high priority.
Well, does that restriction go with the property, even if that business that Jim is talking about goes away in the future?
If they add it to the plan voluntarily, it stays on the plan. If it's not on the plan, then it's open to anybody to sell vehicles from that property. And
well, if they put it on the plan, we've got exactly what we want, and I would think Ms. Love would agree to that.
Frequently, we have master plans that limit uses of the property to be more restrictive than what the zoning would allow. So that would be no different. If they want to restrict themselves with this master plan to operate in a certain way, that's fine too. That's more restrictive than our code, that's okay if they want to add that to the plan.
This is Latisha Alexander, city attorney. And what Bill said originally, if the developer is willing to that restriction, that's fine. But because we can't really provide a strong rational basis for it, we probably could not hold any future owner of that property to that restriction legally.
Even if this developer puts it in his plan?
Correct, because as Bill said, it's more restrictive than our zoning ordinance. So what the future owner will be required to do is only adhere to our zoning ordinance. And if whatever they want to do is within the zoning ordinance, they'll be allowed to do it. It's an issue if they agree to that restriction, that's fine. But if they want to fight it, we don't really have a strong rational basis to require that for them, even though the previous owner agreed to it.
I imagine the only way to would be some kind of a deed restriction from the owner if they sold it. But I just look at this from a different perspective, though. This is not an ideal location for your typical car lot. You know, it doesn't have visibility from Nashville Pike. I have very little, if almost no concern of this turning into a used car lot down the road. It just doesn't lend itself to that for the location or the layout. So personally, I'm not worried about it at all.
I agree with you, Matt.
So, with that, I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve with no conditions. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, was that? Okay. We have a second.
Who seconded that motion?
Mr. Wilson seconded that motion.
Thank you.
It's all to start the discussion off. My rationale for not adding a condition of approval for that is I think the city attorney is correct. Even if this applicant puts a note on the master development plan that says it's somehow restricted not to be a used car lot, but it's allowed in the zoning district, we would have, in my opinion, no basis if a future owner came and asked to amend the master development plan and remove that notation. We would have no ability to deny that because there's no rational reason for it to be there based on the zoning. So it's kind of a moot point.
Very well. Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion on the floor with a second. If there's no other discussion, we'll call for the vote. Mary Ann, you take a roll call vote. All in favor of approval, indicate by saying aye.
Chair Pereira.
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Love.
Yes.
Dr. Orgain. Dr. Orgain. Mr. Strouser.
Aye.
Ms. Hibler. Ms. Hibler. Ms.
Aye.
Hibler. Okay. Dr. Orgain.
Oh,
It
yes.
passes. Oh, got it? Okay. 7-0.
Thank you. That concludes our regular agenda items, but we have under other business,
Thank you.
one or two items, traffic volume report. Bill? would you-
Yes, we have a spreadsheet that was provided in your agenda package, and we can make this available to you by paper. It's a 17 by 11 sheet. That's why it might be difficult to read if you printed it out at home because most people have 11 by 8.5 sheets at home. But what this is just a listing of all the traffic counts that are conducted in the city. And they're done each year by TDOT at select locations they call traffic count stations. So there's a count station number system on the far left, and it indicates the jurisdiction, whether it's a city street or a state highway. So, and a couple of places are county roads, but those are just outside the city limits or close to it. But it indicates here in the color-coded chart, of course, the history of of traffic growth or declines that have been occurring on these roads. And these are reported in average annual daily trips, which is a common way of reporting trips. Most of the traffic studies are reported in peak hour trips, but these counts are provided on an average annual daily basis. So you have each road that's listed there in alphabetical order, so you can pan down across the charts and see where these traffic locations generally are. And then from the numbers, we have a listing, and some of them are highlighted in yellow and some in orange, which will indicate whether or not a roadway is considered over capacity based on a level of service standard. And a level of service standard is generally where people will accept a certain travel speed along that road based on its functional classification and its character that it's constructed in. So for example, you're not going to have a 55-mile-an-hour roadway downtown. So given that, you're going to have higher volumes on wider highway roads like 386 or 109 bypass than you're going to have on Main Street through the middle of town. But based on the level of service, you can see those that are highlighted in orange or red. I don't know how it pops up on your screen. Is those roadways which are at their capacity or above their capacity, and you can see how much. Some of them are barely over capacity, and then we have some that are significantly over capacity, but they're under construction, like Highway 109 south of the Cumberland River is over capacity, but that capacity is only listed for a 2-lane road. And of course, once it's 4-lane road, it will solve that problem, at least for a while. So and some of these will change also, we think, when the Albert Gallatin extension opens. The big issue that we have right now, of course, I think everybody knows, is Long Hollow Pike from Long Hollow Pike and Vietnam Vets Boulevard to Highway 109 bypass. And we have proposals that will alleviate some of that traffic as well. So just give you an idea of what we have. The city doesn't have an adopted level of service standard, so it's not binding. It's just information for you so that you have a good idea of how traffic is being dispersed throughout the city and what either growth in traffic occurring at certain locations or lack of growth in those areas, even decreases. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to give me a call. I did provide this also to the council members recently.
Bill, I would like a copy of that I could print 11 by 17 if you don't mind emailing out the file.
Okay.
Me too. I'd be fascinated. That's a great bit of information. I have a question. When do you think the 2020 count will be? I'm interested to see if across the board, if COVID had an impact on traffic count, because we've asked that question about traffic studies. Were they done during the middle of COVID? This chart should answer that question.
Well, ironically, particularly when in the height of the COVID issue back last spring and I guess early summer, the traffic volumes were significantly affected, and that may be one of the reasons we're not getting the counts yet from TDOT. Ironically, though, what TDOT had and Highway Patrol found out is that we've had more accidents that resulted in fatalities. So even though the traffic volumes went down, particularly on the higher volume roads and really everywhere, is that we've had an increase in fatalities, which means that people are driving more recklessly because there's less traffic control because of the speeds of traffic that are tempering that. So when we do get the 2020 updates, we will update this chart and get that to you.
Well, I'll drop by and pick up a copy.
Okay.
Good information. Thank you. Do we have any other business? Seeing none, do we have any announcements? Pat?
I don't believe we do. I did want to mention that we did send out a request for proposal for updating our zoning code. And we expect to get those back, I think later this week. If I'm not mistaken, I believe we get those back later this week. So we will be perusing through those as soon as we get those. And Mr. Chairman, you'll be getting a copy of that as well.
Very good. I believe that will conclude our meeting if I have a motion to adjourn. Hey, I guess which one? I will tell y'all, I went and got a first round vaccine today, and it is easy. You drive through, you never get out of your vehicle, and you're done. So I encourage everybody to go as soon as you can, get it done. Let's get this in the rearview mirror. I think we have a motion to adjourn. Good night, everybody.
John? John, where'd you go?
Lafayette, Macon County Fairgrounds. Drove an hour away. It was well
Well,
worth
I'm
it.
telling you, the thing at Vol State's the most organized, smooth operation I have ever seen.
Wonderful. If you can get an appointment. I couldn't, so I went to Macon County.
Well, I've had both of mine.
Yeah, you're all like me, Johnny. I get my second one on Friday.
Good for you. Y'all have a great evening. Stay safe.
Thanks
you for your
everyone.
time.